Lieutenant Mira Kowalski had been warned about Nexus 6, everyone in the Galactic Federation had. It's where careers go to die, her former commander had said, signing her transfer papers with what looked suspiciously like relief, and sometimes people too. Standing now at the viewport of the rickety shuttle descending through the planet's toxic yellow atmosphere, Mira was beginning to understand why. Through swirling clouds of ammonia and sulfur, she caught glimpses of razor-sharp rock formations, bubbling acid lakes, and vegetation that looked more like weapons than plants. First time on Nexus human, the shuttle pilot, a Ventusian with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian, didn't bother hiding his amusement. You're sweating already. The fun hasn't even started. Mira wiped her forehead, just excited to get to work. The Xenological Research Division has some fascinating projects here. The Ventusian made a sound like marbles in a garbage disposal. Apparently that was laughter. Sure, if by fascinating you mean suicidal. Nexus 6 has the highest mortality rate of any Federation outpost. But hey, at least the deaths are interesting. The shuttle bucked violently as it hit a thermal pocket. Mira's knuckles went white on the safety harness. The outpost has been here for 15 years, she said through gritted teeth. Someone must be doing something right. 15 years, 7 complete staff turnovers, the pilot corrected. But you humans are stubborn. There's always at least one of you stationed here. Something about proving yourselves. The shuttle broke through the cloud cover, revealing a cluster of metallic domes nestled in a valley between 2 mountains that resembled giant fangs. Floodlights surrounded the perimeter, keeping at bay shadows that seemed to move with purpose. Welcome to Outpost Sisyphus, announced the pilot. Named after some human myth about pointless tasks, which feels appropriate. As they landed, a reception committee of 3 aliens waited on the platform. None of them looked particularly thrilled to see the shuttle. That's Commander Thrix, the pilot pointed to a hulking reptilian with iridescent scales. Trilaxian, tough but fair. The floating blob of tentacles is Dr. Neelix, chief scientist. Brilliant mind, terrible personality, and the fuzzy one is Krim, communications specialist. Only one who might actually be nice to you. Mira squared her shoulders. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to work. Good philosophy. The Ventusian hit the door release. Because friendship isn't Nexus 6's specialty, staying alive, that's the game here. As the door hissed open, a wave of superheated air, carrying the scent of sulfur and something rotting washed over Mira. Commander Thrix's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air, and her fear. Lieutenant Kowalski, the commander rumbled. Another human volunteer. How? Optimistic. Let's see if you last longer than the last one. Behind her, the pilot whispered, for the record, the last one lasted 6 days. Mira stepped onto the landing pad of her new home, the planet's twin suns beating down like judgment. This was going to be either the greatest opportunity of her career, or the shortest assignment in Federation history. Rule 1 of Nexus 6, don't touch anything unless you want to lose a limb. Rule 2, if something moves that shouldn't, shoot it. Rule 3, if you hear singing, run in the opposite direction. Commander Thrix's briefing had been succinct, terrifying, and Mira was beginning to suspect, woefully inadequate. 3 days after her arrival, she found herself trudging through a swamp that glowed in unnatural purple, carrying sampling equipment that weighed almost as much as she did. Ahead of her, Dr. Neelix's tentacles were manipulating 4 different scientific instruments simultaneously. Keep up, human. Your bipedal inefficiency is slowing the entire expedition. The floating scientist didn't bother turning around, his eye stalks swiveling backward instead. Maybe if someone had mentioned the gravity on this side of the planet was 1.3 times Earth standard, Mira panted, I could have prepared better. From her right, Krim chittered sympathetically. The furry communications specialist resembled a 6-limbed koala with enormous ears. Don't mind Neelix. He was born in 0G. Anything above that is inefficiency to him. The 4th member of their party, a silicon-based being named Rak who served as security, made a sound like rocks grinding together. Less talking, more walking. We're approaching the territorial boundary of the Crystal Widows. The what now? Mira asked, alarmed. Arachnoid predators, 6 feet tall, translucent exoskeletons, highly venomous, quite beautiful actually, Krim explained cheerfully. They're usually dormant during the daytime cycle. Usually, Mira repeated. 67% probability, Dr. Neelix interjected. Acceptable risk parameters for standard sampling procedure. Mira muttered under her breath. Remind me what unacceptable risk parameters look like. Their path took them to the edge of a crystalline formation that jutted from the swamp like a massive geode. Colors rippled across its surface in hypnotic patterns. Fascinating, Neelix's tentacles quivered with excitement. The biomineral deposits have increased by 22% since our last expedition. The adaptive capacity of this ecosystem is unprecedented. Several of his appendages began taking samples, scraping and drilling. Mira set up her own equipment, a spectrum analyzer designed to identify organic compounds. The device hummed to life, then immediately began blaring an alarm. Dr. Neelix, I'm getting some strange readings here. Of course you are. Neelix cut her off. This entire planet is a strange reading. Be specific, human. Before Mira could elaborate, the ground beneath them trembled. The crystal formation began to glow brighter, pulses of light traveling through it like a heartbeat. Drax's crystalline body tensed. We need to leave, now. Nonsense. Neelix waved a dismissive tentacle. It's just seismic activity triggering bioluminescent. The rest of his sentence was drowned out by a deafening crack as the crystal formation split open. From within emerged a creature that defied comprehension, a massive serpentine body covered in overlapping plates that shimmered like oil on water. Its head was a nightmare of multiple jaws arranged in concentric rings, each lined with teeth that gleamed in the purple light. Nixian razor claw. Krim screamed, already scrambling backward. Adult female. Run. Drax stepped forward, weapon raised, but the creature moved with impossible speed for its size. One swipe of a clawed appendage sent the security officer flying into the swamp with a sickening crunch. Scatter, Neelix commanded, his body elongating as he shot upward like a rocket. Mira didn't need to be told twice. She abandoned her equipment and ran, choosing a direction opposite from where Krim had fled. The swamp pulled at her boots, slowing her progress, while behind her came the sound of the creature's pursuit, a horrifying combination of hisses and what sounded disturbingly like laughter. A fallen log appeared ahead. Mira vaulted over it, tucked into a roll, and came up running. The log exploded into splinters as the razor claw crashed through it. Not fair, Mira gasped, pushing her burning muscles harder. I have 2 eggs. You have too many. The terrain changed abruptly. The swamp gave way to a forest of twisted metallic trees with leaves sharp enough to cut. Mira weaved between them, hoping the creature's size would be a disadvantage in the dense growth. A mistake. The razor claw simply plowed through, trees snapping like twigs. Mira's foot caught on a root, sending her sprawling into a clearing. She rolled to her back, drawing her sidearm, a pathetically small plasma pistol that would probably just annoy the monstrosity bearing down on her. But the clearing wasn't empty. As Mira scrambled backward, she bumped into something warm and leathery, something that growled. Slowly, she turned her head. Behind her was a smaller version of the pursuing creature, a juvenile razor claw, its plates not yet fully hardened, its multiple eyes blinking with what looked suspiciously like fear. The adult razor claw skidded to a halt at the edge of the clearing, its body language suddenly changing from predatory to protective. Mira found herself caught between 2 apex predators, one adult and one juvenile, in what was clearly a family dispute she wanted no part of. I didn't touch your baby, she said slowly, hands raised. We're all good here. I'll just back away slowly. The adult razor claw opened its concentric jaws and let out a roar that made Mira's fillings vibrate. Then the ground beneath them collapsed, sending Mira and the juvenile tumbling into darkness as the adult's enraged screams faded above. Falling into a sinkhole on a death planet while being pursued by its apex predator wasn't covered in Mira's Federation training manual. Neither was finding yourself in an underground cavern with said predator's offspring, which was now staring at you with 12 iridescent eyes. Nice monster baby, Mira whispered, slowly reaching for her sidearm. Her hand found empty space. The plasma pistol must have been lost in the fall. The juvenile razor claw tilted its head, all 3 of its heads, actually, and made a chirping sound that echoed through the cavern. Its plate armor, still flexible and not fully developed, shifted colors from threatening red to a curious blue-green. You're not going to eat me, Mira asked, knowing full well the creature couldn't understand her, because that would really cap off an already spectacular day. In response, the juvenile shuffled forward, its multiple limbs moving with surprising grace. Mira tensed, preparing for attack, but instead, the creature began circling her, sniffing with olfactory sensors that pulsed along its body. Personal space, buddy, Mira said, backing up until she hit the cavern wall. Just because I'm not shooting at you doesn't mean we're friends. The juvenile stopped circling and sat back on its haunches, now eye level with Mira. It opened the smallest of its concentric jaws and made a sound like a purr crossed with a dial-up modem. Right, fascinating. But I need to get back to the outpost before your mom finds a way down here. As Mira examined the cavern for a possible exit, her emergency ration pack fell from her pocket. The juvenile razor claw immediately pounced, tearing into the wrapper with its outer teeth and consuming the protein bar in one gulp. Hey, that was Mira's protest died as the creature's plates shifted to a vibrant shade of purple and it began making a sound remarkably like a hiccup, then another, and another. Are you choking? Mira approached cautiously. The bar has earth nuts. Maybe you're allergic. The juvenile continued hiccuping, each spasm sending ripples through its armored plates. Acting on instinct honed from years of babysitting her sister's kids, Mira gently patted the creature's middle section. The effect was immediate and entirely unexpected. The juvenile froze, all 12 eyes widening simultaneously. Then its plates shifted to a soft gold color, and it emitted a sound so melodious Mira momentarily forgot she was trapped underground on a hostile planet. You like that? Mira asked incredulously. The juvenile bumped its smallest head against her hand, clearly requesting more pats. Cautiously, Mira obliged, scratching a spot between two plates that seemed particularly flexible. The creature practically melted, collapsing against her legs with a contented rumble that vibrated through her boots. This is ridiculous, Mira muttered. You're the offspring of the deadliest predator on Nexus 6, and you're acting like a puppy. As if understanding her, the juvenile rolled onto its back, exposing its softer underside in what any xenobiologist would recognize as a profound display of trust. I am not rubbing your belly, Mira stated firmly. Then, after a moment's hesitation, oh what the hell? The cavern filled with a sound like wind chimes as she scratched the creature's belly plates. Apparently, this was the razor claw equivalent of ecstasy. You know we really should find a way out of here, Mira said, even as she continued the belly rubs. Your mom's probably tearing apart the planet looking for you, and my team, she stopped. My team probably thinks I'm dead and is throwing a one less human party. The juvenile suddenly perked up, all heads oriented toward a dark passage Mira hadn't noticed before. It scrambled to its feet, then looked back at her expectantly. You know a way out? The creature chirped, taking a few steps toward the passage, then waiting. Fine. Not like I have better options. Mira activated her emergency light and followed. The passage twisted and turned, occasionally opening into larger chambers filled with bioluminescent fungi that cast an eerie blue light. Throughout the journey, the juvenile stayed close, sometimes bumping against Mira's legs or chirping when she fell behind. After what seemed like hours, Mira detected a faint breeze. Please be the surface and not the exhaust vent of some subterranean monster. The passage widened, revealing a sliver of Nexus 6's toxic yellow sky. The juvenile bounded ahead, then turned back, watching Mira with what could only be described as expectation. Thanks for the guide service, Mira said, preparing to part ways. It's been weird. She stepped out onto the surface, recognizing a landmark in the distance, the Twin Fang Mountains that flanked Outpost Sisyphus. About 10 miles away, but walkable. Well, goodbye then, she said to the juvenile, who remained at the cave entrance. Try not to eat anyone I know. Mira turned and started walking. After a few minutes, she heard a familiar chirping behind her. She turned to find the juvenile following at a respectful distance. No, absolutely not. She pointed back toward the cave. Go home, find your mom, terrorize the local wildlife. The juvenile's plates shifted to a mournful blue. It sat, watching her with those 12 unsettling eyes. I mean it, shoo. Mira clapped her hands loudly, a technique that worked on stray cats back on Earth. The razor claw didn't move. Fine, follow me if you want, but when we get close to the outpost, you're on your own. I am not explaining to Commander Thrix why I've adopted the planet's deadliest predator. The juvenile's plates brightened to a joyful golden hue as it bounded to Mira's side. This is temporary, Mira insisted, resuming her trek. And I'm not naming you. The creature purred, rubbing against her leg like an overgrown, armored cat. Definitely not naming you, Mira repeated, even as her mind unhelpfully supplied, Spike. Definitely looks like a spike. As the twin fangs of the mountains surrounding Outpost Sisyphus grew larger on the horizon, Mira found herself having second thoughts about her scaly companion. Actually, 10 thoughts. All of them variations on this is a terrible idea. Okay Spike, not that I'm calling you that officially, we need a plan. She stopped walking and faced the juvenile Razorclaw, who had spent the last hour alternating between running circles around her and bringing her gifts in the form of dead things she couldn't identify and didn't want to. Spike tilted all three of his heads simultaneously, plates shifting to an attentive teal color. Option 1. You stay here, I go back alone, and we pretend this never happened. Option 2. You come with me, they shoot you on sight, and I get court-martialed for bringing the enemy home. The creature chittered, butting one of its heads against her thigh. Yeah, I don't like either option either. Mira sighed, reaching down to scratch the spot between Spike's plates that made him purr like a malfunctioning engine. But we're out of food, I've got third-degree sunburns from these mutant suns, and if we don't get to shelter before nightfall, we'll both be something else's dinner. Spike's plates rippled in what Mira had come to recognize as agreement. So here's what we'll do, she decided. I'll approach first. If they don't immediately shoot me for being 3 days late, I'll explain that you're friendly, docile, practically domesticated. As if to demonstrate his docility, Spike chose that moment to pounce on a nearby rock formation, shattering it with his multiple jaws and sending crystalline shards flying everywhere. Very helpful, thanks. They continued toward the outpost, Mira growing increasingly nervous as they approached the perimeter sensors. When they were about half a mile out, spotlights suddenly swung in their direction, and a siren began to wail. Here we go, Mira muttered. She raised her arms and stepped deliberately into the open. Lieutenant Kowalski returning from expedition, don't shoot. A familiar voice crackled over the external comms. Mira, by the cosmic void, you're alive. It was Krim. We thought you'd been eaten by the razor claw. Not eaten, very much not eaten, but I need you to listen carefully. Stay where you are. Decontamination team is en route. Mira glanced at Spike, who had flattened himself to the ground, plates darkening to match the terrain. Actually, there's something you should know. The sound of an approaching vehicle cut her off. A moment later, the outpost's all-terrain transport skidded to a halt about 20 meters away. The doors hissed open, and out stepped Commander Thrix, Krim, and 2 security officers with weapons drawn. Lieutenant Kowalski, Thrix rumbled, fork tongue flicking rapidly. Your survival is unexpected. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Commander. Dr. Neelix reported you were pursued by an adult female razorclaw. Krim chittered, ears twitching excitedly. How did you escape? About that, Mira began, but Thrix interrupted. I smell razorclaw, the commander hissed, reptilian eyes narrowing. Recent contact. The security officers raised their weapons, scanning the area. Mira stepped forward quickly. Wait, don't shoot, he's with me. A moment of stunned silence followed. He, who? Krim asked, voice rising several octaves. As if on cue, Spike decided this was the perfect moment to make his grand entrance. He uncamouflaged himself and bounded to Mira's side, plates cycling through a rainbow of colors, before settling on a cheerful orange. Weapons immediately trained on the juvenile razorclaw. Lieutenant, get down, Thrix bellowed. No, he's friendly. Mira threw herself protectively in front of Spike, who was now making a curious purring sound. He helped me find my way back. Impossible, one of the security officers, a Mantadian with compound eyes, chittered. Razorclaws are solitary apex predators. They eat everything, including each other. Well, this one's different, Mira insisted. He's been following me like a puppy for the past 3 days. I think he imprinted on me when I helped him with a choking incident. Krim's massive ears twitched in what might have been amusement or shock. You performed the Heimlich maneuver on a baby razorclaw, more like a pat on the back, but fascinating. A new voice joined the conversation as Dr. Neelix floated down from the transport vehicle, tentacles writhing with excitement. The juvenile must have interpreted your assistance as parental behavior. In many species, feeding and physical contact are primary bonding mechanisms. Spike chose this moment to demonstrate said bond by rubbing all 3 of his heads against Mira's side, nearly knocking her over in the process. See? Friendly. Thrix's scales shifted to a dubious green. Even if what you say is true, Kowalski, we cannot allow a razorclaw, juvenile or otherwise, inside the outpost. Security protocols are clear. But Commander, Neelix interjected, tentacles quivering. The scientific value is incalculable. No one has ever observed razorclaw behavior this closely. The Federation would be most interested in. The Federation, Thrix cut him off, would be most interested in us not getting ourselves killed. These creatures grow to full size within 6 months. Then what? We have a fully mature razorclaw roaming our halls. We could set up an external habitat, Krim suggested, clearly warming to the idea. Use the abandoned mining dome on the eastern perimeter. Mira watched the debate with growing hope. Spike, meanwhile, seemed entirely unconcerned, having discovered a fascinating rock that he was now systematically pulverizing with his multiple jaws. I must consult with Central Command, Thrix finally declared. Until then, the creature remains outside the perimeter. He pointed a clawed finger at Mira. And you are responsible for it, Lieutenant. If it eats anyone, that's on you. Yes, sir, Mira agreed quickly. Thank you, sir. As they loaded back into the transport, Spike having to be coaxed into the cargo hold with promises of food, Krim sidled up next to Mira. I can't believe you tamed a razor claw, the furry alien whispered admiringly. Wait until everyone hears about this. The human who made a pet of Nexus 6's deadliest predator. He's not a pet, Mira corrected automatically. Then with a glance at Spike, who was now contentedly gnawing on a spare part he'd found in the cargo hold, he's more like an overly enthusiastic research subject. Whatever you call it, Krim chittered, your social status just went from expendable human to possibly interesting human. That's practically unprecedented. As the transport rumbled toward the outpost, Dr. Neelix floated over, eye stalks focused intently on Spike. I will need to run comprehensive tests, the scientist declared. Biometric readings, cognitive assessments, behavioral analyses. This specimen could revolutionize our understanding of Nexian megafauna. Spike looked up from his improvised chew toy, and made a sound remarkably like a snort. I think, Mira said, hiding a smile, he wants dinner first. From the front of the transport, Commander Thrix let out a long-suffering sigh. 15 years on this hellhole, and now we're running a pet hotel for apex predators. Central Command is going to love this. As they approached the main gates of Outpost Sisyphus, alarms began blaring again. But this time, they weren't for Mira and Spike. Perimeter breach in Sector 7, a voice announced over the comms. Multiple hostiles detected. Thrix's scales darkened to battle red. So much for your homecoming, Lieutenant. Looks like we have more pressing problems. Spike raised all three heads, plates shifting to an alert crimson, and let out a low, dangerous growl. I have a feeling, Mira said quietly, our problems might be connected. Outpost Sisyphus erupted into organized chaos as the transport screeched through the emergency airlock. Security personnel rushed to defensive positions while researchers hurriedly secured sensitive equipment. All non-essential personnel to safe rooms, Commander Thrix barked over the station-wide comm. Security teams Alpha and Beta to perimeter positions. This is not a drill. Mira found herself unceremoniously herded toward the command center with Spike trotting anxiously at her heels. The juvenile Razorclaw's plates had shifted to an agitated purple, all 12 eyes scanning the unfamiliar environment. Easy, buddy, Mira murmured, giving him a reassuring pat. Let's not eat anyone's equipment, okay? Lieutenant Kowalski, Thrix called as they entered the command center. Explain to me why, within hours of your return with a juvenile Razorclaw, we have a security breach that our sensors identify as biomechanically enhanced humanoids. The main view screen displayed multiple heat signatures moving with military precision toward the outpost. They didn't match any standard Federation patrol patterns. I'm guessing it's not a welcome back party, Mira offered, earning a reptilian glare from the commander. This is serious, human. These readings match Black Star Syndicate signatures. Krim gasped from his communications station. The mercenary group. What would they want with our research outpost? Dr. Neelix, who had been hovering silently near the ceiling, suddenly descended. Not what? Who? All his eye stalks swiveled toward Spike, who was now cautiously sniffing at a blinking console. Understanding dawned on Mira. They're after Spike. How would they even know about the juvenile? Thrix demanded. Our communications were compromised last month, Krim admitted, ears drooping. I thought I'd patched the security hole, but someone's been monitoring our comms, Thrix concluded grimly. The moment we reported finding a juvenile Razorclaw, they mobilized. Mira's protective instincts flared. Why would mercenaries want Spike? Dr. Neelix's tentacles twisted in agitation. Do you have any idea what a trainable Razorclaw would be worth? As a weapon? As a research specimen? As a status symbol for collectors of exotic fauna? Billions of credits at minimum. The severity of the situation hit Mira like a plasma bolt. 3 days ago, she'd been a fresh recruit trying to prove humans belonged in the Galactic Federation. Now she was responsible for protecting the galaxy's most valuable predator, who was currently attempting to eat the environmental controls. Spike, no, she pulled him away from the console. Sorry, he's still learning about personal property. Incoming transmission, Krim announced tensely. The view screen flickered, revealing a face that made Commander Thrix's scales bristle. The human on screen had cybernetic implants covering half his face, his remaining organic eye gleaming with cold calculation. Commander Thrix, the man greeted with false warmth. Always a pleasure to find you still alive on this charming death trap of a planet. Captain Vex, Thrix replied coldly. Black Star Syndicate is violating Galactic Federation territory. Withdraw immediately, or face consequences. Vex laughed, the sound distorted by his vocal implants. Consequences? From your skeleton crew of scientists and token security team, I count 15 lifeforms in your entire outpost. I brought 20 elite operatives. His cybernetic eye whirred, focusing. Ah, and there's the prize now. Such a magnificent specimen, even in its juvenile stage. Spike, sensing the attention, let out a warning hiss, plates shifting to intimidation patterns of red and black. The Razorclaw is under Federation protection, Thrix stated firmly. Any attempt to seize it will be considered an act of war against the Federation. War, please. Vex's organic eye narrowed. This is just business. Very profitable business. My client is most eager to acquire the first documented trainable Razorclaw. Mira stepped forward, placing herself between the screen and Spike. He's not trainable, and he's not for sale. Vex's attention shifted to her, his expression changing to one of amusement. Ah, the human factor, I should have known. Always developing emotional attachments to dangerous creatures. His tone hardened. Step aside, Lieutenant. This doesn't concern you. Actually, he's bonded to me, Mira countered, an idea forming. Razorclaws imprint on their parental figures. Remove me from the equation, and you'll have an uncontrollable, rapidly growing apex predator on your hands. It was a bluff. She had no idea if Spike's attachment would persist, but the flicker of doubt on Vex's face suggested it had landed. Then we'll take you both, he decided. My scientists can study the bond, then break it when necessary. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the command center in tense silence. Well done, Lieutenant, Thrix said dryly. Now they want to kidnap you too. I was improvising. They've breached the outer perimeter, Krim reported anxiously. Estimated time to main compound 8 minutes. Commander Thrix activated the station-wide alert system. All personnel, prepare for hostile engagement. This is now a Code Black situation. What's Code Black? Mira asked, even as she checked the charge on her replacement sidearm. It means we're authorized to use lethal force, Thrix explained grimly. And that Central Command has authorized the outpost self-destruct sequence if capture is imminent. Self-destruct? Mira echoed in disbelief. Isn't that a bit extreme? Dr. Neelix floated closer. The research conducted here is classified at the highest levels. The Federation would rather lose an outpost than have it fall into Syndicate hands. A deafening explosion rocked the station. Klaxons blared as sections of the environmental system went offline. They've breached the western airlock. Krim shouted over the alarms. Security teams engaging. Weapons fire echoed through the corridors. Commander Thrix grabbed a plasma rifle from the weapons locker and tossed another to Mira. Protect the Razorclaw, he ordered. Take it to the biological containment lab in Section D. Reinforced doors, independent life support. What about evacuation? Mira asked, feeling Spike press against her leg, sensing her fear. Evacuation pods are in Section F, on the other side of where they breached. Thrix grimaced. We fight our way out or not at all. Another explosion rattled the command center. The lights flickered, then switched to emergency red. Go, Lieutenant, Thrix ordered. We'll hold them here as long as possible. As Mira turned to leave, Spike suddenly froze. All 12 of his eyes focused on something no one else could perceive. His plates shifted to a deep pulsing blue Mira had never seen before. What is it, buddy? She whispered. The juvenile Razorclaw emitted a series of complex chirps and clicks that reverberated unnaturally through the command center. Then, to everyone's shock, the outpost's communication system replied with identical sounds. What in the cosmic void? Krim breathed, ears fully extended. He's communicating with the outpost systems, Thrix asked in disbelief. Dr. Neelix's tentacles writhed in excitement. No, not with our systems. With something else, something outside. The realization hit Mira like a supernova. The adult, his mother, he's calling for help. Spike looked up at her, his middle head butting gently against her hand, as if to confirm her suspicion. His plates now glowed with a confident gold color. Incoming hostiles, Krim warned. They've breached the command center corridor. The doors slid open to reveal Captain Vex himself, flanked by 4 heavily armed operatives in exosuits. His cybernetic eye glowed menacingly in the emergency lighting. No one needs to die today, Vex announced calmly. Hand over the Razorclaw and its human handler. and the rest of you can return to your fascinating research. Commander Thrix stepped forward, weapon raised. Federation protocol is clear, we don't negotiate with criminals. Vex sighed, raising his own weapon, a nasty-looking device that hummed with unstable energy. Always the hard way with you Federation types. But before either side could fire, a deep resonant rumble vibrated through the entire outpost. Dust drifted from the ceiling panels as the vibration intensified. One of Vex's operatives checked his scanner, his expression changing to pure terror. Captain, massive life form approaching. Speed and size consistent with. The roof of the command center peeled open like tissue paper, revealing the toxic yellow sky of Nexus 6, and the massive form of an adult female Razorclaw, her multiple jaws opening in concentric rings, as she let out a roar that shook Mira's very bones. Spike chirped happily, plates glowing bright gold, and all three of his heads looked up at his mother with what could only be described as smug satisfaction. Oh, Mira managed weakly as chaos erupted around her. The family reunion is on. Captain Vex's cybernetic eye whirred frantically, recalculating odds that had just plummeted from excellent to catastrophic. The adult Razorclaw loomed overhead, her massive form blotting out Nexus 6's toxic yellow sky, multiple jaws clicking in what sounded disturbingly like anticipation. Fall back, Vex screamed to his operatives, already backing toward the door. Defensive formation, deploy sonic disruptors. But the mercenaries never got the chance. With speed belying her enormous size, the adult Razorclaw struck, one clawed appendage smashing through the remaining ceiling and snatching up two operatives like toys. Their screams were mercifully brief. I believe, Doctor. Neelix observed with scientific detachment from his position near the ceiling, that this qualifies as what humans call a mother's wrath. Mira had dropped to the floor, pulling Spike close as debris rained around them. The juvenile chirped excitedly, plates cycling through colors so rapidly they became a blur. Is he narrating? Mira asked incredulously, noticing how the adult Razorclaw paused after each of Spike's complex vocalizations. More likely providing target identification, Commander Thrix answered grimly, taking cover behind an overturned console. Telling Mommy who the bad guys are. As if confirming this theory, Spike let out a particularly elaborate series of chirps while staring directly at Captain Vex. The mercenary leader paled visibly as the adult's attention swiveled to him. This is a misunderstanding, Vex shouted, backing toward the exit. We were simply responding to a distress call. Federation regulations. Whatever lie he planned to finish with was cut short as the adult Razorclaw's secondary jaw shot out, grabbing Vex by his cybernetic arm and yanking him upward. The mercenary dangled helplessly, his weapon clattering to the floor. Somebody do something. Vex pleaded, looking down at the outpost personnel. Commander Thrix snorted. You invaded our outpost, planned to kidnap our personnel, and intended to steal a protected species. I believe the human phrase is you made your bed. Mira, however, was having second thoughts about their savior. If the adult Razorclaw finished with the mercenaries and decided the outpost personnel were next on the menu, they'd have no defense. And while Spike seemed attached to her, she had no illusions about where his loyalties would lie if forced to choose between her and his biological mother. Spike, she whispered urgently, tell her we're friends. The good guys, no eating. The juvenile looked at her with what could only be described as amusement, then let out a series of gentle chirps toward his mother. The adult, still dangling a terrified Vex from one appendage, still, all her eyes, far more than Spike's 12, focused on Mira. The room fell silent as predator and prey sized each other up. Lieutenant, Thrix hissed, if you have any rapport with these creatures, now would be the time to use it. Swallowing her fear, Mira slowly stood. She kept one hand on Spike's middle head for reassurance, though whether she was reassuring him or herself was debatable. Hello, she addressed the adult directly. Thank you for saving us from the bad guys. I'm Mira, I've been looking after your child. The adult Razorclaw made a sound like grinding boulders. I think, Krim whispered from behind a fallen section of ceiling, she wants to know your intentions. My intentions, Mira echoed. I just didn't want him to choke on a protein bar. Spike chirped again, nudging Mira with all three heads simultaneously. His plates had settled into a calm blue hue. I think he wants you to do the thing, Dr. Neelix suggested, tentacles gesturing vaguely. What thing? The bonding behavior, the parental action that caused the imprinting. Understanding dawned. Gently, Mira reached out and scratched that special spot between Spike's plates. The juvenile immediately melted, emitting the now familiar sound like wind chimes that indicated pure contentment. To everyone's shock, the adult Razorclaw set Vex down, none too gently, and leaned her massive form closer to the destroyed roof. Her own plates shifted colors, settling into a cautious amber as she observed the interaction. "She's curious," Thrix murmured. Razor claws aren't known for parental behavior beyond initial protection. They abandon their young within days of birth. "That's so sad," Mira whispered, continuing to pet Spike. "No wonder he latched onto me." The adult made a curious rumbling sound, then extended one of her smaller appendages toward Mira. Everyone in the command center tensed. "Don't move," Thrix warned. But Mira had come too far to back down now. Slowly she reached out her free hand toward the offered appendage. They touched, human fingertips against alien claw, and something electric seemed to pass between them. Understanding perhaps, or at least recognition. The adult withdrew her appendage, then made a series of complex vocalizations to Spike. The juvenile responded, plates shifting through patterns so complex that Mira couldn't begin to interpret them. "What are they saying?" she asked softly. I believe Dr. Neelix floated closer, eye stalks extended in fascination. "They are negotiating." "Negotiating what?" Her question was answered, when Spike suddenly butted all three heads against her, nearly knocking her over, then bounded over to his mother. The adult gently scooped him up with a specialized appendage, placing him on her armored back where he secured himself with his multiple limbs. "Oh," Mira said, trying to hide her disappointment. "I guess this is goodbye then." But Spike wasn't done. He chirped loudly, all 12 eyes fixed on Mira. The adult made a sound like thunder, then extended the same appendage she had touched Mira with earlier. "I believe," Krim said slowly, ears twitching in amazement, "you're being invited along." "Along? Along where?" "To their territory, presumably." Dr. Neelix's tentacles quivered with scientific excitement. "This is unprecedented. An invitation to observe Razorclaw social behavior in their natural habitat." Commander Thrix stepped forward, scales darkening. "Out of the question. Lieutenant Kowalski is Federation personnel, not an offering to the local wildlife." "Actually," Mira found herself saying, "I think this might be the opportunity of a lifetime." She gestured around at the destroyed command center, the cowering mercenaries, the entire situation. "The Syndicate knows about Spike now. They'll keep coming. But if I go with them, learn about them, maybe I can help establish actual communication. A relationship." "You're suggesting becoming an ambassador to the Razorclaws?" Thrix asked incredulously. "I'm suggesting," Mira replied, stepping toward the adult's extended appendage, "that sometimes the best way to understand something isn't to study it from a distance." From his position on his mother's back, Spike chirped encouragingly, plates glowing golden. "This is highly irregular," Thrix grumbled. "Central Command will have my scales for this." "Tell them it was my idea," Mira suggested, taking hold of the adult's appendage. With surprising gentleness, the massive creature lifted her up beside Spike. "Tell them Lieutenant Mira Kowalski has gone native in the interests of xenological diplomacy." "And when should we expect your return?" Krim called up, ears twitching anxiously. "I'll check in regularly," Mira promised, finding a secure position next to Spike, who nuzzled her affectionately. "And I'll bring back more data on Razorclaw behavior than you could gather in a decade of observation." Dr. Neelix couldn't contain himself. "The scientific papers alone will be revolutionary. Human Razorclaw cohabitation, a field study. I can already see the accolades." The adult Razorclaw seemed to have tired of the conversation. With Mira and Spike secured, she began to move away from the outpost, her massive form surprisingly graceful despite its size. "Lieutenant Kowalski," Commander Thrix called after her. "Try not to get eaten." "I'll do my best, sir," Mira called back, laughing despite herself as the adult Razorclaw picked up speed, racing across the hostile terrain of Nexus 6 with the fluid motion of a natural-born killer. Spike pressed against her side, plate shifting to a contented purple as they journeyed toward whatever passed for home among the galaxy's deadliest predators. 6 months later, Commander Thrix stood at the newly rebuilt viewing platform of Outpost Sisyphus, watching as 3 figures approached on the horizon. "Is that?" Krim began, squinting through the toxic yellow haze. "Yes," Thrix confirmed, scales shifting to surprised blue. "Lieutenant Kowalski has returned, and she's brought company." Through his binoculars, he could see Mira walking confidently across terrain that would kill most species in minutes, flanked by not 1 but 2 Razorclaws, Spike, now nearly adult-sized, and his massive mother. All three moved in perfect synchronization, as if they'd been traveling together for lifetimes instead of months. Fascinating, Dr. Neelix observed, floating up beside them. The integration appears complete, and look, they're all wearing some kind of communication devices. As the unusual trio reached the outpost perimeter, Mira activated her comm unit. Her face appeared on the command center screen, tanned by alien suns, and marked with new scars, but grinning broadly. Outpost Sisyphus, requesting entry for 3. 1 human xenobiological liaison, and 2 razor-clawed diplomatic representatives. Commander Thrix couldn't help the twitch of amusement that rippled through his scales. Diplomatic representatives. Turns out, Mira explained, her hand resting casually on Spike's adult-sized middle head, razor-claws aren't just apex predators. They're sentient, community-oriented, and extremely territorial about their planet. The Federation's been trying to establish a research base on what they consider their ancestral breeding grounds. She paused, letting that sink in. They'd like to negotiate terms, properly this time, without the miscommunications that led to all those unfortunate incidents with previous outposts. Thrix looked from Mira to the 2 massive predators flanking her, creatures that had been the stuff of nightmares for every being stationed on Nexus 6, now standing calmly at the outpost perimeter. Lieutenant Kowalski, he said finally, scales shifting to an impressed Violet, I believe your performance review will need significant revision. Thank you, sir, Mira replied, scratching Spike behind his plates as the massive predator leaned into her touch like an oversized pet. It turns out humans have their uses in the galaxy after all. Sometimes being the weird species that makes friends with apex predators isn't such a bad thing. As the outpost doors opened to admit the galaxy's first razor-clawed diplomatic delegation, Commander Thrix couldn't help but wonder what Central Command would make of their report. Recruitment recommendation: more humans, preferably the kind that don't know what to fear.